Hey guys, David here reviewing yet another episode of Gotham from Season 1, and that is the 6th episode of Season 1 so far, and it is entitled Spirit of the Goat. I'm serious. And there are going to be spoilers for the episode, so do not watch it if you haven't caught up, but this is actually one of my favorite episodes of the season so far. I'm not going to lie. Despite a humongous blemish I just can't seem to get over. I was just so flustered, I just had to update my Facebook status about it. But before I get to that, let's get to what this episode was all about. It was all about Bullock this time around, and I'm glad because they decided to take some time away from some of the things that are going on in the background that I admit I'm very interested in this world of Gotham, and decided to take the entire episode and focus it on Bullock by having a case from 10 years ago when he was practically the Gordon of Gotham, and you had yet his partner, Reeds or something like that. I can't remember his name, but anyways, he had a partner that was the embodiment of what he was going to become. You know, skeptical, naive, very thick-headed. But it was cool to see that Bullock used to be the Gordon type, the White Knight, so to speak, which is kind of funny that they use that terminology considering the Christopher Nolan movies. But it was cool to see that contrast of what Bullock used to be and how the transformation of Gotham being this very corrupt place ultimately got to Bullock, essentially, and therefore he became that character that felt like there was no hope for Gotham. But seeing that this killer seemingly came back, even though he took him out and closed the case, he has returned. And so this has Bullock on edge, going like, what the hell is going on? I thought I took care of this guy. So first off, it's a very interesting premise to develop Bullock as a character, but it's also an eerie one. I kind of got over the fact that this case this week had almost nothing to do with Maroni or Falcone or Mooney for that matter, or even Penguin. At first it was kind of jarring because up until this point every case that we've had so far tied in with those subplots, and I actually really liked that. And so at first I was kind of against the idea that this case had nothing to do with that, and it was simply just a thing that appeared out of nowhere, and now Gordon and Bullock needed to take care of it. But as time went on, as the episode went on, I kind of grew to like it, because I'm like, okay, let's take a break from some of that stuff and now focus on one particular character, develop him, and get you to like him even more. I mean, up until this point, I was warming up to Donald Logue's interpretation of Bullock, because he had his moments where he was becoming a little bit easier going, and he was starting to form just a little bit of camaraderie with Gordon, especially in the last episode where they were sharing food with one another at the beginning. I really liked that. So to take that character and make him just a little bit more sympathetic. I mean, he's not dealing with a very traumatic event in his past necessarily, but it's just a little something to humanize the character. Made me go, okay, you know, this guy is capable of feeling fear and vulnerability. And one of my favorite scenes from this episode that brought that home for me was the scene after apprehending what they thought was the copycat in present day, and simply just having Bullock tell Gordon to go home and get some rest with a very somber voice. I don't know what it is, but there was something about that scene that made me go, that's the kind of character that I wish Bullock to be, where he's charismatic, he's humorous, but he's still human inside. You know, things can get to him. And he calls Jim by his name, Jim, instead of calling him kid or boy or whatever, you know, some kind of moniker. He just said, you know, take care, Jim. And I just thought that was one of the most human moments that Bullock has had. But the other thing that I really enjoyed about the case is something that we've kind of seen before, but I'm a sucker for these kind of things in detective stories, where a case that was ultimately solved years ago comes back out of nowhere and just has the detectives in question just go on a mind trip like, wait, I thought I took this guy out. I've always been a sucker for those kind of stories because it's very, very trippy. But what I liked about this episode is that they never really went the supernatural route, because even though it seemed like it was at first, and I like the detail of Bullock finding out that this copycat had a what's the term, the Latin term for serial killers, their modus operandum or something like that. I know I'm probably butchering it right now, but that the thing that killers always leave behind as their calling card. He figures out that this copycat is doing something that no other person could have known about. He even goes to his former partner, who unfortunately is now in a wheelchair. And that part, the actor who played his former partner, I liked him. I mean, he only had a couple of scenes, but I really liked that actor. He was a really good character actor, but I like that detail because it kind of threw a twist in the whole thing and made me kind of second guess myself. Is this really a supernatural thing? I kind of hope they don't go that route, but I am second guessing myself here. And I really liked the twist with the hypnotherapist being the one behind it all. That was cool. That was really cool. Sure, me personally, I'm a little skeptical that hypnotherapy can have such a strong influence on somebody's mind to be able to legitimately control this person essentially with their mind by having them go into a trance and getting them to do whatever you want. I mean, that's like brainwash. I've always thought that was a bit of a stretch in real life, but because this is a TV show, I'm willing to suspend that. And I really did like that twist. I thought that it was really clever, and I personally thought that it brought that case to a very satisfying ending. Now, I said that this case had very little to do with any of the subplots, and it really does. There's nothing about Maroni or Falcone. There's not even any Fish Mooney, which I think is a very well appreciated break. That, you know, out of all the subplots, I'm glad that we're taking a break from the one with Fish Mooney, because it was going in a direction that I was becoming very worrisome with. But anyways, that's not part of this episode. I like that they took a break from that and the whole stuff with Maroni and Falcone, and like I said, I grew over time to appreciate that. And it had very little to do with Penguin. However, we still had scenes with them, and as well as the whole thing that's going on with Gordon and the Major Crimes Unit investigating as to whether or not he did kill Penguin, which an eyewitness puts him at the scene of the crime, and therefore they arrest him. And I was kind of surprised that they made that arrest in this episode. I thought that they were going to drag it on for at least the next one, but no, there they go, and he decides to cooperate, which is kind of funny considering that as peacefully as he goes away from his apartment, he's then later on seen at the station going, "No, I didn't kill him." I'm like, what? But then in comes Penguin, which I've stated before is one of my favorite aspects about the show. And the early scenes that we had of him, which were only like one or two, were mainly with his mother. And as cartoony as his mother kind of appears to be, I did like that he's a mama's boy, because I don't know, there's just something about Penguin being a mama's boy here that just felt right, and with not only with how they have written this character, but also how Robin Lord Taylor is portraying him. And I don't know, this is something about it that I really liked, and kind of plays into Penguin's psychosis as to how he's willing to rise through the ranks through the city, but he still goes back to his mother, and I'm hoping that that's going to be a very essential part about what that character is all about. But what I was not expecting was him showing up at the police station, surprising everybody. That's how you end an episode, okay? That was a humongous cliffhanger that I really did appreciate from Gotham, and it's probably one of my favorite endings for any episode so far. And you have Bullock finding out, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then you got the Major Crimes Unit finding out, and you just have the look on that Montoya's. You just had the look on Montoya's face, going, "Oops." We also had another character who only had literally just 2 scenes in this episode, but I felt like these scenes were incorrectly placed in this episode. I felt like they could have been saved up for the next one, and that was everything with Bruce Wayne. That first scene I thought was really intriguing because he's watching the report about the goat, which, by the way, I tried taking this killer seriously, but every time he said, "You can't stop the spirit of the goat," if I was the cop at the scene trying to apprehend this guy, and he was right in front of me going, "I will always come back, you can't stop the goat," I would have been like, really? But what I found interesting is that he was going after rich kids, the firstborn of every rich family, and that was essentially the whole part of that woman's plan, which was very Ra's al Ghul-ish. So I found that kind of interesting, and kind of interesting that it ties in with Nolan's interpretation of Ra's al Ghul, where they try to make it seem supernatural at first, but then he simply just used decoys to kind of keep himself immortal. And I liked that aspect being incorporated into this whole plot with the goat becoming essentially being the hypnotherapist and using various weak-minded people as her puppets, and her whole philosophy behind that. I find that actually really interesting. But her methods were to go after the firstborn of every rich family so that she can, really strike at the heart of what she thought was the most corrupt in Gotham, and to really, balance everything out, I guess. But I liked that they cut to Bruce, and Bruce is essentially the firstborn of a wealthy family, even though that family is kind of sort of gone with the murder of his parents. And even he says so himself, I have nobody to come and go back to, which was a very heartbreaking line, I'll admit. And even more heartbreaking when you see the look on Alfred's face saying, hey, I'm right here. But that goes nowhere. I thought it was going to be immensely interesting to actually have the GOAT take away Bruce and have him be just a little bit more essential than what he's been. I mean, so far he's been doing all this detective work, but not really serving the plot that's going on with Gordon. I mean, he's not doing anything, so I feel like he's become a bit of a wasted opportunity. And I thought that they were going to actually make him essential in this episode by having him be kidnapped by the GOAT. And I thought that they were going to do that, but then it turns out it's just Catwoman breaking in and stealing something, and that is it. Definitely two scenes that, the first scene I could have appreciated because it would have given me intrigue of having him be kidnapped by the GOAT, but the second one, literally nothing. It could have been saved up as a cold open for the next episode, or at least another episode that is going to center more on Bruce later on down the road. But this pales in comparison to my biggest complaint about this episode. What happened? What happened? You were doing a marvelous job at treating this character right by giving him characteristics that I was okay with in the past couple of episodes whenever he would pop out. I appreciated it. What happened that made you drop the ball? Alright? He's back again speaking in riddles. He's creepy, and not in a good way where, it fits for the character. No, I mean creepy in a very over-the-top, really bad way. He has a fucking coffee mug with a question mark on it. To be fair, he did have a couple of funny lines when he was inside that room and the girl comes back and notices that everything has been unorganized or whatever. There were there was like one line that made me laugh where he was talking about the whole lateral thing. That one got me. Okay, that one did make me laugh. But besides that, guys, come on. You know better. You've done better. Go back to being better. Besides that, the episode gradually became better as it fleshed out Bullock. It gave us a really great cliffhanger with Penguin showing up at the police station. And aside from my feelings with how they treated Riddler this time, Enigma this time around, I still thought that it was actually a pretty solid episode. So I'm going to give Spirit of the Goat a low 8 out of 10. We're going low this time because of how they just beat us over the head with Riddler in this episode. But I still have hope for the series. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode if you saw it. And I'll see you guys next time.